My name is Cameron, and growing up, I was always in the shadow of my older sister Lily. Our house was constantly crammed with people, aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it. They'd swarm our backyard every weekend like it was some kind of festival, drawn by the promise of Mom's legendary barbecue, and, of course, a Lily performance. Our backyard was practically a stage. The meticulously mowed lawn and that massive oak tree at the back created the perfect backdrop. Dad would be manning the grill, the scent of charcoal and sizzling burgers thick in the air, while Mom flitted around, making sure everyone had a drink and a plate piled high with food. "Lily, sweetie," Aunt Marge would inevitably call out, her voice piercing the general chatter. "Why don't you give us a little song?" And just like that, every head would turn towards my sister. Lily, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, would hop onto a chair, her blonde curls bouncing, a dramatic throat clearing, and then magic. "My heart will go on," she'd belt out, doing her best Celine Dion impression. The adults would go wild, clapping and cheering like they were at a sold-out concert. Mom and Dad would beam with pride, Dad often wiping a tear from his eye. Meanwhile, I'd be off to the side, practically trying to merge with the rose bushes. It wasn't that I didn't want to join in, but every time I tried to sing, it sounded like a dying cat. And poetry, forget about it. The words would get tangled up in my mouth, leaving me red-faced and stammering. I often overheard relatives whispering about how different I was from Lily. It wasn't just the relatives, though. Mom and Dad made it pretty clear who the star of the family was. While Lily was chauffeured from dance classes to singing lessons to art workshops, I was left to my own devices, not that I minded, really. I found solace in the dusty old books lining our shelves, escaping into worlds of adventure and knowledge. The only person who seemed to truly get me was Great Aunt Maggie. She'd find me tucked away behind the garage or perched in the treehouse, nose buried in a book. "What adventure are you on today, Cameron?" she'd ask, settling down beside me. I'd look up, grateful for the interruption. "Oh, just reading about ancient Egypt," I'd say, showing her the cover of my latest find. Maggie would nod, her eyes twinkling. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, girl. Don't let anyone tell you different." Those moments with Maggie were a balm to my soul. She didn't expect me to perform or be anyone other than myself. With her, I could just be Cameron, the quiet, bookish girl who preferred the company of paper and ink to the chaos of family gatherings. But as much as I cherished those moments, they couldn't completely erase the sting of being the forgotten child. Every time Lily mastered a new song or won another award, my parents would shower her with praise and gifts. New clothes, the latest gadgets, you name it. Lily got it. And me? I got hand-me-downs and a sigh of exasperation. School became my sanctuary. While I wasn't exactly the most popular kid, I found my groove in the classroom. I wasn't content to just sit there and passively absorb the lessons. No, I was determined to truly understand every single thing the teachers said. "Mrs. Thompson," I'd say after class, my voice quiet but firm. "Could you explain that bit about mitosis again? I didn't quite get it." She'd smile, clearly pleased by my interest. "Of course, Cameron. Why don't we go over it together?" If a teacher couldn't spare the time, I'd ask for book recommendations. Soon, my backpack was perpetually overflowing with extra reading material. I'd stay up late, devouring those books, determined to master every subject. All that hard work paid off. By the time I hit high school, I was top of my class. For once in my life, I was the best at something. I even made a few friends, fellow bookworms who didn't mind my introverted ways. As graduation approached, our house became Lily Central. Mom was constantly helping her put together her portfolio for the advertising and PR program at some fancy college. "Oh, honey, this campaign idea is perfect," Mom would gush, looking at Lily's work. "You're so talented!" I'd roll my eyes and retreat to my room, burying myself in my studies. But one night, during yet another family dinner devoted to Lily's college plans, something in me snapped. "I'm going to college too," I blurted out. "I want to study management." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, to my shock and hurt, they all burst out laughing. "Oh, sweetie," Mom said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "We don't have money for that. You'll need to get a job after graduation. You're just not as gifted as your sister." I felt like I'd been slapped. But I'm the top student in my class," I stammered, my face burning with anger and embarrassment. "I get straight A's." I stormed up to my room and came back with my report card, slamming it on the table. They all leaned in to look, their eyes widening in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad muttered, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years," I spat. "Not that any of you ever noticed." Mom, at least, had the decency to look ashamed. "Cameron, we had no idea." But Dad cut her off. "Look, it doesn't change anything. We've spent all our savings on Lily's education. There's nothing left for you, Cameron. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You'll go to work at my cousin Frank's restaurant after graduation." I turned and ran, ignoring their calls. I sprinted up the stairs, into my room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. As I collapsed onto my bed, sobs racking my body, I felt something inside me harden. "Fine," I thought, my hands clenching into fists. "If they won't help me, I'll find another way. I'll show them all what Cameron can do." The next few months were a blur. Lily headed off to college, her departure marked by tearful goodbyes and proud parental embraces. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor, determined to graduate at the top of my class. During this time, I found myself spending more and more time with Great Aunt Maggie. Her small, cozy house became my refuge from the tension at home. One afternoon, as we sat in her sunlit kitchen sipping tea, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, Cameron," she said, her kind eyes fixed on me, "what are your plans after graduation?" I stared into my teacup, fighting back tears. I don't know, Aunt Maggie. Mom and Dad won't help me with college. They say there's no money left after paying for Lily's education." Maggie was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Cameron, dear, I've got some savings. I'd like to give them to you for college. You're smart as a whip, and I'll be damned if I let that brain of yours go to waste." The reality of her words hit me like a tidal wave. I burst into tears, overwhelmed by her generosity and the sudden realization that my dreams weren't dead after all. "Thank you," I sobbed, throwing my arms around her. "Thank you so much, Aunt Maggie." The months flew by, and before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, diploma in hand. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming at me. My parents were there too, looking proud but uncomfortable. That evening, as I pored over college brochures, Mom walked in. "Cameron, honey," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Your father's cousin Frank called. He's got a waitressing job for you at his restaurant. Isn't that exciting?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, I won't be needing that job. I'm going to college." Dad appeared in the doorway, frowning. "And how exactly do you plan to pay for that?" "Aunt Maggie is helping me," I said, my chin held high. "She's giving me her savings for tuition." The shocked silence that followed was almost comical. Then, to my disbelief, Dad's face turned red with anger. "Absolutely not!" he bellowed. "If Maggie's got money to spare, it should go to Lily. She needs a car for her job in advertising after she graduates next year." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious?" I spat. "This is my chance to get an education, to make something of myself." "Don't be selfish, Cameron," Mom chimed in. "Your sister needs that money more than you do." "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "This is my money now, and I'm using it for college. End of discussion." From that moment on, life at home became unbearable. My parents either ignored me completely or snapped at me over the smallest things. The tension was suffocating. After a particularly nasty argument, I called Aunt Maggie in tears and told her everything. "Pack your bags, sweetheart," she said without hesitation. "You're moving in with me." The next day, I stuffed everything I owned into a cab and drove away, watching my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. As I pulled up to Aunt Maggie's house, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Her little bungalow, with its rambling rose bushes and the scent of baking bread always wafting from the kitchen, felt more like home than my actual house ever had. The summer flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. Aunt Maggie, bless her soul, helped me with everything, from filling out college applications to picking out dorm room essentials, and before I knew it, I was stepping onto the campus of State University. Thanks to my stellar grades and Aunt Maggie's generosity, I'd gotten into the management program I'd always dreamed of. My first day of classes, I felt like I was walking on air. As I sat in my Introduction to Business lecture, drinking in every word, I couldn't help but think, I made it. I'm really here. Meanwhile, Lily was starting her senior year at her fancy college. I hadn't heard much from her or my parents since I'd moved out, but I tried not to let it bother me. I was too busy reveling in my newfound freedom and the excitement of college life. But then, about a month into the semester, Aunt Maggie called. "Cameron, dear," she said, her voice hesitant, "I think you should sit down for this." My heart raced as she filled me in on the family drama I'd missed. Apparently, Lily had shown up at home out of the blue, announcing she'd dropped out of college. The reason? She was pregnant. According to Aunt Maggie, Lily had been flippant about the whole thing. "Oh, don't worry," she'd said, tossing her hair. "The baby's father is loaded. We'll be getting married soon." But the story didn't end there. It turned out Lily's boyfriend wasn't as committed as she thought. When he found out she'd been sleeping with his friend too, all hell broke loose. "Now they don't even know who the father is," Aunt Maggie sighed. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process it all. Part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The golden child had fallen from her pedestal. But mostly, I just felt sad for Lily and the mess she'd gotten herself into. The saga continued over the next few months. Aunt Maggie kept me updated on all the gossip from the family gatherings I no longer attended. When Lily's baby was born, a DNA test confirmed her boyfriend was indeed the father. But instead of the fairy tale wedding Lily had envisioned, he simply agreed to pay child support. The final blow came when Lily, desperate for work, took a job as a waitress at Uncle Frank's restaurant, the very job my parents had tried to force on me. As I hung up the phone, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. There was a small, petty part of me that wanted to gloat, to rub my success in my family's faces. But mostly, I just felt a profound sense of gratitude for where I was and how far I'd come. Years flew by in a blur of lectures, exams, and late-night study sessions fueled by coffee and sheer determination. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation again, my hard-earned management degree clutched tightly in my hand. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming at me, tears of pride in her eyes. It was her faith in me, her unwavering support, that had gotten me here. Thanks to my top grades and glowing recommendations from my professors, I landed a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork, one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city. The salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly successful. With my first paycheck, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I marched into the electronics store and bought the latest smartphone for Aunt Maggie. Her face lit up when I presented it to her. "Oh, Cameron," she gasped, turning the sleek device over in her hands. "This is too much," I grinned, already pulling out my own phone. "Not at all. Now let me show you how to use it." Over the next few weeks, I taught Aunt Maggie the ins and outs of social media. She took to it like a duck to water, especially loving Facebook's video feature. Soon, her page was filled with clips of her garden, her cat, and her infamous apple pie in various stages of creation. I'd watch her videos during my lunch breaks, always making sure to leave a comment or a like. It was our way of staying connected even when work kept me busy. One day, as I was preparing for the dinner rush, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, surprised to see my mother's name on the screen. We hadn't spoken in years. "Cameron," her voice was hesitant. We were hoping you might come over to talk." After a long pause, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home, my hand hovering over the doorbell. Before I could press it, the door swung open. "Cameron!" My mother pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you." Inside, I found my father, Lily, and a toddler I assumed was my niece. The atmosphere was tense, but not hostile like I'd feared. "You look good, kiddo," Dad said, his voice gruff but warm. "We hear you're doing well for yourself." I nodded, still wary. "I am. I'm a manager at the Gilded Fork now." Their eyes widened at the name of the restaurant. Mom cleared her throat. That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you." Over the next hour, they apologized for how they'd treated me, admitting they'd been wrong to dismiss my potential. Then came the real reason for the reunion. "Cameron," Mom said, glancing at Lily. We were wondering if you might be able to help Lily get a job at your restaurant." I looked at my sister, bouncing her daughter on her knee. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'll see what I can do," I said finally. "No promises, but I'll ask." True to my word, I spoke to Mr. Reeves, the restaurant owner, about Lily. To my surprise, he agreed to give her a shot as an administrator. Lily started the following week. I watched her closely, half expecting her to fail or cause drama, but to my shock, she excelled. She was punctual, efficient, and the customers loved her charm. As the weeks passed, I found myself relaxing around her. We weren't best friends by any means, but we developed a cordial working relationship. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, the universe decided to throw me another curveball. This time, a positive one. Mr. Reeves called me into his office one day. My heart raced, wondering if I'd done something wrong. Instead, he grinned at me and said, "Cameron, how would you like to help me expand the business?" Before I knew it, I was overseeing the opening of not one, but 3 new restaurants. My days became a whirlwind of staff meetings, menu tastings, and number crunching. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and everything I'd ever dreamed of. The promotion came with a significant pay bump, and suddenly, I found myself with more money than I knew what to do with. That's when the calls from my parents started. At first, it was just small things. "The roof is leaking," Mom would say, her voice hesitant. "We were wondering if you might be able to help out a little." I was surprised at how good it felt to say yes, to be able to solve their problems with a simple transfer of funds. It started with the roof, then it was a new water heater, and before long I was funding a complete home renovation. As their financial situation improved, thanks to my monthly allowance, the infamous family parties started up again. But this time, when I attended, things were different. "Have you heard about Cameron's latest project?" Mom would gush to the relatives. "She's opening a new restaurant downtown. We're so proud of her." I'd catch Lily's eye across the room, and she'd give me a small smile. She was doing well too, having been promoted to head administrator at the Gilded Fork. "My girls," Dad would say, an arm around each of us, both of them making their old man proud. Part of me wanted to be bitter, to remind them of how they treated me before, but a larger part reveled in the warmth of their approval, something I'd craved for so long. As I drove home that night, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. Finally, after all these years, I had what I'd always wanted: success in my career and the love and appreciation of my family. I was the golden child now, but better than that, I was my own woman, standing on my own 2 feet. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when my world came crashing down around me. I was scrolling through Facebook, sipping my coffee, when I saw that Aunt Maggie had posted a new video. It was from one of the family gatherings I'd missed due to work commitments. Smiling, I clicked play, expecting to see the usual scenes of laughter and merriment. What I saw instead made my blood run cold. There, in living color, were my parents, their faces flushed with alcohol and self-righteousness. Mom was gesticulating wildly, her voice slurred but unmistakable. "And Cameron, that ungrateful little freeloader," she was saying. "She barely gives us anything. We're not made of money, you know." Dad chimed in, his face red. "That's right. We're doing just fine thanks to our Lily. She's the one keeping that fancy restaurant afloat. Cameron just rides on her coattails." The video continued, with various relatives nodding along, some even adding their own criticisms. Lily sat in the corner looking uncomfortable but not contradicting them. As the video ended, I sat there stunned. How could they? After everything I'd done for them, all the money I'd given them, how could they turn around and say such awful, untrue things? With shaking hands, I scrolled down to the comments. There, I saw a stream of messages from my parents. "Maggie, delete this video right now. You had no right to post this. Take it down immediately." But Aunt Maggie's response made me burst into tears. "I don't know how to delete videos, and even if I did, I wouldn't. It's time everyone saw the truth about how you treat Cameron. She's the one supporting you, and this is how you repay her kindness. Shame on you both." I sat there for what felt like hours, replaying the video, reading and rereading the comments. The betrayal cut deep, reopening wounds I thought had long since healed. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed Aunt Maggie's number. "Oh, Cameron, dear," she said when she answered, her voice full of sympathy. "I take it you've seen the video." "Yeah," I choked out, my voice raw from crying. "I can't believe it, Aunt Maggie. How could they?" I could hear the anger in her voice as she replied, "They've always been like this, Cameron. You just haven't been around to see it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth." We talked for hours, Maggie comforting me as I cycled through shock, anger, and grief. As night fell, I made a decision. "I'm cutting them off," I told Aunt Maggie, my voice firm despite the pain in my heart. "No more money, no more help. They made their bed, now they can lie in it." The days following the video revelation were some of the hardest of my life. My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from my parents, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Their words, so cruel and untrue, played on a loop in my mind. Finally, after a week of silence, I sent them a brief, cold text. "I've seen the video. I know what you really think of me. Don't contact me again. The money stops now." Their responses came flooding in immediately. At first, they were apologetic. "Cameron, sweetie, we're so sorry. We didn't mean any of it. Please forgive us." But as the days passed and I maintained my silence, their tune changed. "We're your parents. You owe us." Each message twisted the knife deeper, but I stood firm. I'd given them chance after chance, and they'd thrown it all back in my face. It was time to break the cycle. Lily, surprisingly, stayed out of it. At work, she was the model employee, efficient and professional. If she harbored any resentment over the loss of our parents' financial support, she didn't show it. Our interactions remained cordial but distant. "I'm not taking sides," she told me one day after a staff meeting. "It's between you and them." I nodded, appreciating her neutrality, even if part of me wished she'd stand up for me. But I understood. She had her own child to think of now. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself leaning heavily on Aunt Maggie. Our Sunday video calls became the highlight of my week. She'd regale me with stories from her garden or her latest baking adventure, providing a much-needed dose of normalcy in the chaos my life had become. "You're doing the right thing, Cameron," she'd assure me when doubts crept in. "Don't let them manipulate you anymore." To my surprise, other relatives began reaching out too. Cousin Sarah, who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings, sent me a heartfelt email. "I saw the video. I want you to know I think you're amazing, Cameron. What you've achieved, how you've helped everyone. You're an inspiration. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Uncle Bob, Dad's brother, called me out of the blue. "Kid, I've watched you grow up and become this incredible woman. Your parents are fools if they can't see how special you are. You've got family in your corner, remember that." These messages of support were like balm to my wounded heart. I realized that while I might have lost my parents, I'd gained a family who appreciated me for who I truly was. As the year drew to a close, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. I went in nervous, wondering if the family drama had somehow affected my work performance. Instead, he smiled broadly and said, "Cameron, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group." I stood there, shocked into silence. Finally, I managed to stammer out, Are you sure?" He nodded, his eyes twinkling. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You've earned this, Cameron. You're the reason this business has flourished. It's time you took the reins." As I left his office, my head spinning with possibilities, I realized something profound. The little girl who'd been overlooked and underestimated had grown into a woman who'd surpassed everyone's expectations, including her own. And as I looked ahead to the future, I knew, with a quiet certainty, that the best was yet to come. Story 2. The sound of my parents' words coming through the heating vent was all I could hear as 17 candles flickered on the chocolate cake in front of me. Their murmurs had evolved into hisses that could have cut through the festivities taking place downstairs. We made the decision to hold off until after her birthday. Mark. Tension bubbled in Mom's voice. And Lisa. Will another day make a difference? She is entitled to know. My name is Audrey, and this was the turning point in my life, both before and after. Suddenly my fingertips tasted like chalk instead of vanilla icing. My party dress was rustling on my bedroom's wooden floor as I pushed my ear closer to the vent. It was you who was eager to move in with her. Mom spit. I mean, at least I was decent enough. Dad gave a sour laugh. Is that what you call spending months skulking about with Ethan? My gut churned. Ethan. It was not a novel name. For the last year, he had been attending family get-togethers and school functions as Mom's work friend. They had twin kids, and they always stared at me as if I were something glued to their expensive shoes. I jumped when I heard a knock on my door. Audrey, Uncle David was the one. Sweetheart, everyone is waiting below. Your cake is melting. Just adjusting my makeup. Scrambling to my feet in front of the mirror, I yelled back. I saw a girl straining frantically to cling to something that was already broken in my reflection. The pink outfit I'd picked up seemed like a costume all of a sudden, and the meticulously applied mascara was a little smeared. For heaven's sake, Mark, quiet down! Above me, Mom growled. The visitors will listen. Give them a listen. You've already transferred half of your belongings to his place, and I'm sick of acting like nothing's wrong. The world slanted to one side. Mom was going to move in with Ethan. I reached for my phone and wrote SOS with shaking fingers. I need you right now. My dearest buddy Olivia would sympathize. She did it every time. Downstairs, like a badly performed play, the celebration resumed. Emma's grin is too dazzling. Uncle David's phony humor. Additionally, my parents were standing on each side of the room, both of them focusing more on their phones than on me. Zoe and Mia, the twins, were absent. Give thanks to God for little favors. Honey, make a wish. Mom's voice sounded sweet and syrupy, covering up the poison I had heard upstairs. I gazed at the flames as they danced. I see 17 small betrayals flashing before me. When your entire world is on the verge of collapsing, what do you hope for? I nodded and smiled at the appropriate times, even though the cake tasted like ash. When Olivia noticed my expression midway through, she came over and squeezed my hand beneath the table. She was aware. She was constantly aware. We want to share something with you. After the final visitor had departed, Dad finally remarked. The birthday banner above them now seemed like a terrible joke as he and his mother stood clumsily in our living room. Keep it. My voice sounded louder than I actually felt. Everything was audible to me through the vent. Is Mom going to move in with Ethan? Also, Dad, you have someone. Their faces. God. Their faces. Mom's amazement was visible through her flawless makeup. And like the remains of my birthday cake, Dad's customary self-assurance fell apart. We were going to tell you the truth, sweetie. Mom began to grab me. I took a step back. When, after everything you owned had been transferred. At Ethan's house, after the twins had taken over my room. It's unfair, Dad interrupted. Both of us have attempted to make things work fairly. My voice sounded nothing like the chuckle that came out of my mouth. Do you wish to discuss fairness? On my birthday, how about we decide to blow up our family? It's not easy. Audrey, Mom begged. We had no intention of hurting you. However, they had. And while I stood there, I watched them stumble through their defenses and answers. Within me, something solidified. They believed they could just mold our family into any new shape they desired, likening it to clay. They were mistaken. I went upstairs after turning. They were beckoning to me. However, I had already made plans, making calculations. Their new companions wanted to play happy families. All right. However, they were going to discover that there are repercussions for certain betrayals, and I had only just begun. From the doorway of what was now to be my bedroom at Ethan's house, I could see the cardboard box marked Audrey's room. Like everything else in this establishment, the walls were a pure white, devoid of any individuality. Having you here makes the twins very happy. Hovering behind me, Mom murmured. She had been employing that fake cheeriness since the divorce news 3 weeks prior, and it was evident in her voice. I put the box down more forcefully than I should have. Is that the reason they're hiding in their room rather than assisting us with moving my belongings? They're adapting. My dear, everyone has never experienced this before. Is it new? Similar to the identical high-end backpacks I had seen in the corridor, or the pictures of the family that are already on the walls. At a beach I had never visited, Mom, Ethan, and the twins were delighted. With each new element I observed, the chronology of their relationship became more apparent. Dinner is served at 6 o'clock. Mom went on. Ethan is preparing his own lasagna. Olivia and I have plans. Get rid of them. The joy splintered a little. This supper is our first as a family. I looked at her, admiring her well-groomed hair and well-chosen casual attire. We're not a family. We are the result of your decisions. Her expression tensed. That's sufficient. Audrey, you won't have me, and I won't have you. What? Speaking the truth. Somewhere in the house, a door banged, and then there was laughter. Mom's face changed to one of relief. Come introduce yourselves to Audrey, girls. In their identical attire, Mia and Zoe were seen in the doorway mirror pictures. Mia didn't bother concealing her contempt, but Zoe's grin was rehearsed. Nice space. As her gaze swept across my boxes, Mia spoke. We used to utilize it for studying. Mom warned you, Mia. What? I'm just telling the truth, as Audrey desires us to be. Zoe moved forward, venom covered with sugar. For you, we organized the closet, at least the most of it. We still require room for our excess inventory. I had a look into the closet. Only around 25% of it was vacant. Their high-end clothing and footwear filled the remaining space, a strong statement on ownership and territory. Regards. Flatly, I replied. How considerate. Why don't you girls assist Audrey with unpacking? Desperate to create a sense of sisterhood, Mom proposed. Not possible, Mia answered. Practice your dancing. Do you recall, Dad? Behind them, Ethan showed up with the car keys already in hand. Yes, exactly. Princess, let's go. He seldom acknowledged me, preferring to concentrate on his mother. The lasagna is baked at 350 degrees for 40 minutes. Excellent. Something about their casual familiarity made my stomach flip when Mom stroked his arm. Be careful when driving. Mom stayed around after they went, watching me unpack my life into this sterilized room. Don't, even though I know it's difficult. I took out my old blanket, the one item that may give this area a faintly personal touch. Simply don't. She let out a sigh. I was coming to despise that martyred sound. Dinner is served at 6 o'clock. Attend. As soon as she was gone, I reached for my phone. I showed Olivia the closet problem on FaceTime and informed her, they're worse than I thought. Almost everything has already been seized by the twins. Absolute power. Get moving, Olivia concurred. But you are aware of what this implies, aren't you? You're threatening them. That wasn't how I had considered it, perhaps. Of course. If they weren't concerned about their position, they wouldn't be marking their territory. My phone displayed a notice. Dad texted me, I'm already missing you, child. The home is too silent. Then came another text. Sarah is excited to see you this coming weekend. Sarah? His girlfriend. My parents' other half also betrayed me. God, please, Olivia murmured, observing my face. Now what? This weekend, Dad wants me to meet his girlfriend. I laughed, but it didn't sound right. It seems like everyone, with the exception of me, obtains a new family. Audrey. I should leave. Remember? Family supper at 6? I wouldn't want to pass on this photo-perfect opportunity. After hanging up, I sat on my naked mattress and gazed at the immaculate walls. I could hear Mom chatting on the phone from downstairs, most likely to one of her friends, who was trying to make this scenario seem nicer than it actually was. Upon surveying this room, I realized that this was the place they intended me to call home. Something changed within me. All of them believed that they could change reality to fit their needs, but they had overlooked an important detail. I could also play that game. There was nothing left for me to lose. On the floor of the restroom was the broken silver locket that belonged to my grandma. Like a shattered promise, its fragile chain twisted. I picked up the pieces and gazed at it as my hands trembled. Destroyed was all that remained of her. Mishaps occur. From the doorway, Zoe spoke. As phony as her fancy handbag is her innocence. You might want to reconsider leaving your belongings in the communal restroom behind her. Mia grinned. In any case, it appeared quite flimsy. I gripped the shards, feeling the jagged edges pierce my hand. My granny owned this. Was. Mia underlined, looking at her flawless manicure. Their pricey makeup was all over the bathroom counter, still in place. My tiny cosmetic bag, which took up the entire area, had been pushed to the side, perched precariously like myself. Women. The sound of Ethan's words echoed upward. This is the realtor. Realtor. Like cold water, the term struck me. I carried the shattered locket in my pocket as I followed my stepsisters downstairs. In our living room was a woman in a sharp suit. My former living room. I have a clipboard. Dad's home. Dad's house was being sold. Audrey. Brightly, Mom remarked. We have someone here to assist us in selling the house. Isn't it thrilling? Professionally, the realtor grinned. Right now, the market is doing really well, using the current rates and your father's equity. What's equity? Before I could stop them, the words spilled out. The deed no longer even bears Dad's name, does it? Mom. The smile wavered. These things are difficult, honey. In your study, I located the documents. I went on, seeing her pallid face, the credit card statements, the new mortgage, and the house moved to Ethan's name. The real estate agent moved uneasily. With his businessman's mask securely in place, Ethan took a step forward. It's not the time, Audrey. When will you have sold all my dad has worked so hard to achieve? When all traces of our former existence have been eliminated. That's sufficient. Mom's voice was like a whip snap. Now tell Ethan you're sorry. Instead, I took out my phone, looking over the pictures I had taken of the papers. Do I also need to apologize for learning about the second mortgage? Or the credit cards that are maxed out? Zoe and Mia had become silent, their customary arrogance replaced by what appeared to be terror. Excellent. The realtor advised that we reschedule, already moving in the direction of the entrance. Ethan answered casually, No need. Audrey is simply adjusting to some challenging changes. Teens, you understand. Processing. I chuckled. Is that the term for stealing a person's home? Mom, Audrey Marie Thompson, took hold of my arm and dug her fingers into the ceiling. Why now? In order to conceal additional secrets. As you ruin what's left of my life, act as though nothing is wrong. Now the realtor was undoubtedly going. I apologize in a mumble, sis. Something deeper was seen under Ethan's broken businessman mask. Mom's hand grew tighter. This arrangement was approved by your father, she growled. After you threatened to reveal his affair, he signed the documents. Yes. I thought the stillness that followed those emails was total. The twins appear stunned as well. Mom's hand fell from my arm, like if it had been scorched. You have no right to invade my privacy. I took out the shattered locket as if it were a private matter, similar to destruction. All I had left of Gran was a simple accident. Ethan moved in front of us. Go to your room, girls. However, Dad. Now Mia began. They left. However, not before Zoe gave me a glance that suggested revenge. I didn't give a damn. The harm was already done, Mom said in a whisper. You had no right. Her flawless exterior disintegrating. Those were private documents, as if your connection with Ethan were private. Dad and I believed that you were working late. That's sufficient. Ethan spoke loudly. That's not how you'll talk to your mother. In my home. Your home? Bought with my dad's money, his reputation, and his silence, I said. Is your beloved realtor aware of the liens? The debt collectors? Mom's face had turned ashen instead of pale. To what extent are you aware? I felt something cold and harsh as I looked into her eyes. Calm down in my chest. Everything. And soon, so will everyone else. Between us, the menace lingered. As I ascended the stairs, I was already avoiding the shattered necklace that was digging into my palm when Mom took a step forward. Let them worry. Let them speculate as to what more I discovered. What more could I do? They believed they could make my history disappear, tear off my memories one by one. However, they had overlooked one important detail. You break stuff sometimes. Return with more vigor than before. My bedroom's immaculate white walls were dripping with spray paint. Foot-high lettering and crimson letters spell out thief. My laptop screen was damaged like a spider's web, and it was lying broken on the floor. The blank area where I had concealed the documents, however, was what chilled my blood. All of my meticulously collected proof, lost. Mom. Mia's voice, which was carefully tuned for maximum drama, reverberated throughout the house. Audrey's room was ruined. The sound of footsteps roared up the stairs. As the parts clicked into place, I stood in the middle of the mayhem. Lately, the twins had been too quiet, too well-mannered. They were waiting. God, oh God. In the doorway came Mom. Ethan, just behind her. What have you done, Audrey? Consult your ideal stepdaughters. I spoke steadily. Even if my chest is burning with anger, inquire about the stolen papers. Records? Something changed in Ethan's attitude, from his customary harsh condemnation to one of calculation. Which documents? Zoe showed up with fake innocence and big eyes. Last night we discovered her searching Dad's office, but we made an effort to stop her. Untruthful. It was a whip-snap of a word. Then describe this. Mom's hands trembled as she pointed to the walls. Justify your destruction of our house. Your house, I chuckled. Do you mean the house you purchased with your father's money from blackmail? Ethan took a step forward, losing all appearance of paternal care. Audrey, where are the papers? Lost. Somewhere secure, I looked him in the eye, similar to the duplicates I created. The twins looked at each other. This time, there was actual dread. They were unaware of the duplicates. That's sufficient. Steel was Ethan's voice. You've been grounded. No computer, no phone, no. I can't be grounded. You aren't my dad. No, he concurred. His face were twisted by something unsightly. Your father is a weak man who was unable to maintain his home, or even his family. Mom winced. Lock her in, please, Ethan. He looked across to the twins. Observe her. Call me right away if she attempts to leave. I can't be held captive by you. I murmured, but the lock's click reverberated through the door with finality. Mom's protests faded down the corridor, and I heard them. Ethan smoothed things out with his calm voice. The twins set up shop outside, and their hushed chatter served as a continual reminder that I was being held captive. Uncle David had given me a burner phone, which was concealed in a hollow book, but they hadn't discovered it. Ethan had seized my phone. They had missed something else when they searched my room. I took it out and typed with shaking fingers. It's taking place. They discovered that the papers needed to be extracted. It was a prompt reaction. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. Prepare yourself. I surveyed the ruined chamber, taking in the signs of their despair. They believed they had triumphed. Believed the threat had been controlled. However, they had forgotten about the email I had set to send automatically at midnight if I didn't stop it. Every board member of Ethan's firm is expected to get an email with what I found. Everyone they had been attempting to impress, even family friends. I jumped when I heard a gentle tap on the window. Outside, Olivia squatted on the roof, her expression glum. She would make use of the ancient oak. Since middle school, this has been our escape route. As I slowly opened the window, she muttered, Jesus, Audrey. What were they doing? Attempted to frame me. Failed. I reached beneath the bed for my emergency kit. Outside are the twins. No more. She grinned fiercely. Their automobile was being towed, I informed them. They hurried to see down. Their frantic cries were audible to me, the sound of footsteps running. Excellent. Uncle David is awaiting. Over 2 blocks. As she helped me up onto the roof, Olivia remarked, "Are you certain about this?" I reflected on the shattered necklace, the mansion that had been stolen, and the other little cruelties. They intended to imprison me and make me vanish. However, I will not be the one to vanish. As we descended, we heard the oak tree groan. In the distant fall foliage offers protection. The engine of an automobile idled. Uncle David is ready to assist me in reversing the situation. Let them locate my unoccupied room. Allow them to experience what true betrayal is like. They believed they could imprison me, manipulate me, and dismantle me gradually. They were going to find out, though. Prey can occasionally turn into predators. And I had finished playing the prey. The scent of ancient books and secrets filled Uncle David's study. Aunt Emma set a warm mug of tea next to me as I sat in his leather chair, surrounded by the evidence I had acquired. Hours earlier, the automatic email had been sent. The members of Ethan's board would have read everything by now. "Your mom has made 6 calls." Uncle David checked his phone and spoke. "Ethan has phoned more than many people have allowed." I laid out his desk with the papers, emails, transfer logs, and bank statements. They're most likely learning what happens when Emma touches the shattered locket around my neck, and their idyllic world falls apart. She had assisted me in using gold wire to fix it, enhancing its brilliance by repairing the flaws. "Sweetheart, are you certain about this?" The doorbell's jingle reverberated throughout the home as soon as you started down this route, via the window for studying. Mom's automobile was parked in the driveway. Right behind it is Ethan. Uncle David responded, "I'll take care of things, but I got up. No, I will." I opened the entrance door with steady hands. Mom rushed in, holding her phone and smearing her makeup. "Have you done anything?" "Just like you taught me," I answered. I took precautions. Ethan pushed past her, his eyes wild and wrinkled like a business suit. "Are you aware of the damage you've caused?" "An urgent meeting is being called by the board. My investors are learning the truth about how you actually created your empire." I took a step back, allowing them to use deception and extortion to follow me into the study. Mom insisted that it wasn't like that. Our goal was to create something better for everyone. Better? Like coercing Dad into signing over his house by threatening to reveal his affair, or helping Ethan conceal money from his ex-wife, I grabbed a paper off Uncle David's desk. Ethan, the twins' mother, became motionless. "How did you learn about it?" "You trained your girls to look through my belongings in the same manner. I discovered how to examine more closely." Mom slumped into a chair, her flawless exterior disintegrating. "We had no intention of hurting you." "No, you just intended to cause harm to everyone else." I looked across at Ethan. "Are the offshore accounts known to your board?" "The shell businesses." His face twisted. Uncle David cut into his speech. "You're a little too careful." "Still, give your next words a lot of thought." Outside, a vehicle door crashed through the window. Dad was stepping out of his car and appeared to be lost in a way I had never seen him do before. In an attempt to restore control, Ethan stated that the police would be engaged. "Actually, this is corporate espionage." Emma then raised her voice. "Whistleblowing is the term. Audrey also has very good documentation." Once more, the front door opened. Dad's words echoed down the corridor. "What's going on, Lisa?" "I just got a call from the board." He paused when he saw us all and emerged in the doorway. His gaze met mine and I recognized him. "You?" He muttered. "Did you do this?" "The finest taught me," I said. "I learned how to ruin a family from all of you." Mom burst into tears. Weeks ago, I would have been moved by the soft, broken noises. They have now strengthened my determination. In an hour, the board will convene. I kept collecting the papers. They will be curious about the missing money. "The faked signatures, everything, please!" Mom grabbed me. "This is something we can resolve. We remain family." "Family?" I withdrew. There is no room lock among family members. Priceless memories are not destroyed by family, or pilfer homes, or send emails, destroying human life. Dad spoke quietly. It was a slap of words. I examined each one. Mom's tears. Dad was disappointed. Ethan's anger. Aunt Emma's and Uncle David's worry. You're correct. Finally, I said. Experts taught me about destruction. I took the mended locket from my granny. The light catches its golden scars. However, I also gained new knowledge. You all couldn't figure out something. What is that? Broken things don't always shatter even, Mom said. I took the papers and walked to the door. They can occasionally break loose. Behind me, Ethan began to threaten. Dad just stood there in silence as Mom started begging again. However, I had already started to go toward the board meeting and Uncle David's automobile. That would make all the difference. I learned how to break stuff from them. I would now show them what it was like to be broken. And perhaps, just possibly, we might all learn how to rebuild ourselves. With its polished wood and accusing quiet, the boardroom had the feel of a tomb. As I presented the facts, 12 sets of eyes regarded me from around the enormous table. Every clandestine transaction, every filthy secret, my heart pounded against my ribs as if it were trying to break free, yet my hands remained still. The chairman stated that these accusations are grave. He spoke in a deliberately neutral tone, particularly from a teenager. An adolescent has access to confidential company records. With a strong tone, another board member said, "You have these, Miss Thompson?" The door sprang open before I could respond. Ethan and his attorney strode in. My stomach fell when the twins emerged behind them. They have no business being here. Ethan declared that this gathering was a sham. Confidential documents were stolen when my stepdaughter broke into my home office. You and your girls ruined my possessions, so I broke in after you locked me in my room. With tears running down her cheeks, Mia took a step forward. That is untrue. Audrey, you were loved. We made an effort to be family, but you were furious. So envious. Envious. I chuckled. It's fragile. Of what? Our mother's flawless small deed. Silently, Zoe said. Our biological mommy. Dad didn't tell us about it, as these materials demonstrate. The room became silent. I took a close look at the twins and saw something I had previously missed, anguish that reflected my own. Is this accurate? Turning to Ethan, the chairman spoke. Did you conceal any assets from your former spouse? He did more than that. Taking out the last document, I said, her signature was falsified by him. Mia concluded. We were aware. We were constantly aware. Ethan's face turned pale. Girls, we believed that you would eventually give us the truth if we assisted you in keeping things from Audrey, Zoe went on. About everything, including Mom and the money, the triumph. The twins' breakdown was exactly what I had envisioned. The adversary wasn't them. They resembled me exactly. Our folks' games with pawns. This is no longer about corporate fraud, the chairman stated solemnly. This issue erupted in our boardroom from a family situation. No, I objected. Isn't this about justice? Mia broke her tone. Or is the goal to harm others before they harm you? All of a sudden, the papers seemed heavy in my hands. Poisonous. I had become everything I detested because I had been so intent on getting even. Someone has phoned the cops. Breaking and entering was announced by Ethan's attorney. Theft of company records. The offenses your client committed were real, I retorted, but my tone faltered. And you tried to expose them by committing many crimes. His response was fluid. What distinguishes you from that? The chairman got up. We've deferred this meeting until a thorough inquiry is completed. Guards have shown up at the doors, and security will escort everyone out. In the hallway, I witnessed Mom sobbing onto Uncle David's shoulder. Dad was standing close by, looking confused. Everyone's attempts to create ideal families were failing. I had also assisted in swinging the hammer. Was it worthwhile? As we were taken outside, Zoe inquired, destroying everything. The fluorescent light caught the golden scars on my grandmother's mended locket when I touched it. I expected it to feel different. It never does. I knew she was speaking from experience when she answered. Taking revenge just makes you feel more isolated. Police vehicles were pulling up outside. Everything is painted a vivid shade of blue and red by the lights. Ethan's misdeeds would be revealed by the evidence I had acquired. But at what price? I had damaged something inside of myself because I was so bent on breaking them. Olivia showed from out of nowhere. "I have the keys. It's time to leave. It won't help to run." "After me," Ethan called. "You'll just demonstrate that you are who they believe you to be." But I saw my broken family in the rearview mirror as I got into Olivia's car and knew he was mistaken. I wasn't who they believed me to be. I was terrible. I have to deal with that immediately. Mom sat opposite me in the interview room, her face harshly shadowed by the fluorescent lights of the police station. Her expensive clothing appeared to be rumpled. Her flawless facade eventually broke when her makeup splattered. "Put the accusations aside," she murmured softly. "This is still fixable. Like you saved the twins' mother, or saved Dad's life." I followed the scar left by the shattered locket on my palm. "Certain things are unfixable. You have no idea what you have done." Her voice faltered. "The company's stock is falling and Ethan is facing charges. There are also fraud allegations against your father." The words tasted like ash, I know. When secrets are revealed, that is what occurs. The door opened. A social worker followed Ethan's twins inside. In some way, they appeared smaller, with their matching trousers and sweatshirts in place. Mia's red-rimmed eyes begged that they be told. "You lied about everything, tell them." I didn't lie, though. I looked them in the eye. "I didn't, you know." "Our mom gave us a call," Zoe said. "For the first time in 3 years. She wants to know if the information in the newspaper is accurate about her father keeping money hidden regarding the falsified papers." They retreated as Mom grabbed for them. "Women, don't, please." Mia broke her tone. "You were also aware of everything. He kept us away from her with your aid, like fog." The realization hovered in the air. I turned to face my mom. "Really?" I noticed something I had previously overlooked when I looked at her. She had accused Ethan of the same deliberate deception. "Did you pick him for that reason? You recognized yourself, so I asked." She flinched. "He understood, which is why I selected him, about going above and above to create something flawless." "Ideal?" Zoe gave a sour laugh. "Do you call this that?" The social worker took the initiative. "We must talk about your short-term living circumstances, girls. I'll have them remain." A fresh voice spoke. In the entryway, we all turned to see the mother of the twins. I had only seen her in old pictures. She appeared worn out yet resolute. "I've requested emergency custody previously." "You can't." The woman interrupted Mom as if she couldn't tell me where my girls were for 3 years. Her grin was piercing. The court didn't agree. It buzzed on my phone. Olivia texted. "There is news everywhere. Are you all right? Was I?" I surveyed the surrounding ruins, the twins' perplexity and Mom's tears, the righteous rage of their mother. Justice was what I'd sought, yet this felt completely different. "Audrey," Mom begged, "consider what you're ruining. Once you decided that falsehoods were more essential than love, our family was ruined." My chair scraped the floor as I got to my feet. "I simply reveal the truth. All of you attempted to bury. How much did it cost you, too?" Silently, Mia inquired. "Examine yourself. Now you're as alone as we are." She was correct. In my search for retribution, I had turned into what I detested most, someone with a need for power who broke things. The social worker looked at her timepiece. "Your statement must be continued by the detective, Audrey." I touched my grandmother's restored locket one more time and nodded. I was reminded that damaged things may be beautiful if you were honest about the breaks by the golden scars that glinted in the harsh light. Surprising myself, I apologized for becoming like you all in the process, not for revealing the truth. "Now what?" Zoe inquired, her voice now low. I gave them all a look. "Mom, the twins? Their mom. We now learn to accept reality, everything." I felt something change inside of me as I left them with their broken delusions. My retaliation didn't provide me the fulfillment I had hoped for. However, it was being replaced by something else, perhaps understanding, or pardon, of myself, not of them. Because the ideal family that we had all attempted to create was ultimately simply another illusion. And sometimes the only way to assemble the parts into something tangible was to break them apart, despite the fact that those parts would never again fit together exactly as well. The remnants of my former existence were stored in cardboard boxes in Uncle David's attic, which I combed through. One of my grandmother's picture books dropped a letter, paper that has become yellow. Her graceful calligraphy is still clear. After a long period of time, "Have you found anything?" Inquiring from the doorway was Aunt Emma. I carefully unfurled the letter. It was dated 3 days before to her passing. "Audrey, my darling," the letter started, "you will realize at the conclusion of this that families do not always get back together, but keep in mind that fragments might form new designs. If you have the guts to put them in a different order." Downstairs, through the attic window, the doorbell rang. On the porch, Mia and Zoe were smaller than I had recalled. 2 weeks had passed since the police station. They have been phoning ever since everything fell apart. Aunt Emma spoke quietly. "Each day of the week, I'm aware that I handled my fixed locket. Your mother consented to therapy, and their mother was granted custody. It doesn't matter right now." I gently folded the letter. Yesterday, Dad's plea agreement was accepted. My shoulder was touched by Aunt Emma's hand. "You are not required to watch them." However, I was already on my way downstairs. In my pocket is a letter from my grandmother. As I opened the door, the twins' normal assurance gave way to something more brittle, and they glanced up. Mia pointed to a little wooden box in her father's desk and said, "We found this." When they had taken everything, I knew right away. The jewelry box belonging to my grandma, which vanished during the relocation. Zoe hurriedly added, "We didn't know what it was then. We just hid the stuff our father gave us and did what he requested. As if you concealed your mother's true nature." The words sounded harsher than they should have. "Indeed." That's how Mia's voice cracked. I accepted the package and felt its well-known weight. A key to my father's house was tangled in antique jewelry. Ethan had claimed it. "We may return it," the prosecutor remarked, Zoe stated. "Why actually are you here when it wasn't a part of anything else?" Their glances were mirror reflections of doubt. "Mia finally mentioned wanting to smash things that harm you, and we now understood," Zoe went on to say. "But we also understand about trying to fix them." My grandmother's message about shattered parts and new patterns came to mind. "Certain things are unfixable." "No," Mia concurred, "but perhaps there are alternative ways to rebuild them." I took my phone out of my pocket and showed them the unsent email that had been on my screen for days, the one that would ruin what little reputation their family still had by revealing the final of Ethan's secrets. "Do it," Zoe muttered, "whether it aids in your recovery. Now we get it." But when I actually looked at them, I realized what my retaliation had produced. 2 females, just as shattered as I was, were attempting to reconstruct their lives from the wreckage. I removed the email. "Mommy, finally," I said. "Does she surpass the falsehoods we were told?" Mia grinned, a little differently than we had anticipated, but authentic. "Real is excellent," I said, recalling what my grandma had said. "We can deal with real." They understood what I wasn't saying and nodded. We had no friendship. We were something different now, even though we might never be family. The same storm's survivors. Recognizing how to rebuild? Next week, the prosecutors would like to speak with us once again. Dad's other accounts were brought up by Zoe. "Yes, I did touch my locket. I'll be present." Mia hesitated as they turned to go. In light of its value, "We apologize for everything." I said, "Me too," and I meant it. I read my grandmother's letter once more while sitting on the porch steps after they had departed. My restored locket's golden scars were illuminated by the dusk light, which served as a reminder that occasionally fractures in patterns convey tales of what was lost and what was found. I was unable to repair the damage, not the trust we'd broken, not the families we'd lost. However, perhaps we might use the fragments to make something new, similar to the locket, something authentic, with all its flaws and wounds, something real. Perhaps that was sufficient.